Hi, welcome to our channel where we share the most intriguing stories. He just wanted peace, a private lake, quiet mornings, and no neighbors in sight. But when a relentless HOA queen named Karen tries to claim his sanctuary as community property, a war erupts. Docks, drones, and court drama collide in this epic showdown over freedom, fish, and fury. You know, I never imagined I'd be the kind of man who got territorial over a lake. But here I am, 46 years old, divorced, semi-retired from architecture, and the proud owner of 30 acres of pure, soul-healing solitude, with a private lake right in the center of it all. That lake isn't just a body of water to me. It's my reset button, my sanity, my kingdom. 3 years ago, I bought this land after the city chewed me up and spit me out. Burnout doesn't just sneak up on you, it rolls in like a freight train. I needed quiet. I needed space. And more than anything, I needed something that was mine and only mine. That's how I ended up here in the deeper parts of the state, where GPS gives up and birds outnumber people. The property came with full water rights. Every inch of shoreline, every ripple, every cattail stalk, all of it deeded and recorded in my name, legally locked down tighter than Fort Knox. I built a small rustic boathouse near the eastern edge, threw up a dock by hand, and parked my vintage Crestliner with a 9.98p outboard motor there, like it was a Ferrari. It's not a luxury vessel, but it purrs in the morning like a satisfied cat. I fish when the mood hits, cruise across the lake just for the breeze, or sit on the pier at dawn with a thermos of black coffee watching the mist lift. Sometimes I talk to myself, sometimes I talk to the fish. Either way, they both listen better than most people. Life here was peaceful, emphasis on was. For 2 years, the only neighbors I had were a family of raccoons that liked to tap dance on my roof at night, and the occasional deer I named Steve. But last spring, that peace started to rot at the edges. That's when the developers moved in. Just across the ridge to the west, a brand new subdivision sprang up like a tick on a dog. One of those planned communities with identical pastel houses, precision manicured lawns, and more rules than a medieval monastery. They named it Waterside Bay. Ironic, since the bay they claimed to be near was in fact my lake. Enter the HOA. And at the front of it, like a queen bee in overpriced athleisure, came Karen Hill. I didn't know her name at first. I just noticed a sudden influx of SUVs, joggers in coordinated outfits, and golden retrievers with better hair than me. Then came the letters. HOA welcome notices, flyers about community meetings, and finally an envelope in my mailbox labeled Notice of Visual Disruption. Apparently my dock, and specifically my boat, was a visual disturbance to community harmony. That was my first official introduction to Karen. No hello, no warm cookies, no neighborly goodwill, just printed passive aggression in 12-point Times New Roman. That's when I realized something. These people weren't just neighbors. They were organized, entitled, and they believed, somehow, that the lake belonged to them. It didn't. It belonged to me. And I had the title, the surveys, and the scars from building it all myself to prove it. But they didn't care. Not yet. Not until they tried to take it. It started on a Sunday morning, right as I was tying off my boat after a quick ride across the lake. The fog was still lifting off the water, the sun not yet fully committed to rising, and then I heard it, heels on gravel. A cadence too self-assured for someone who doesn't own the land they're stomping on. I turned, and there she was, Karen Hill, the self-appointed monarch of Waterside Bay, standing at the edge of my dock like she was about to bestow a royal decree. White sneakers so clean they glowed, pastel zip-up jacket, and that expression I'd come to recognize, the I'm smiling but I'm ready to bite look. Good morning, she chirped, in a tone that suggested anything but. We need to talk about your boat. I blinked, pulled off my cap. My what? Your boat, she said, motioning dramatically to the perfectly fine watercraft behind me. It's unsightly, loud, and it disrupts the harmony of our lakeside view. Not to mention, it scares away the fish. We've had multiple complaints from our HOA fishing club. I thought she was joking. Honestly. For a split second, I waited for a punchline. Then I saw her clipboard. I'm sorry, I said slowly. But are you under the impression that this is your lake? Karen gave a plastic chuckle, the kind that says, "Oh, you poor thing." This body of water, according to our community charter, is to be treated as a shared recreational space. All residents of Waterside Bay are entitled to access and enjoy it freely. It's in our bylaws. I let that sink in for a moment, staring at her like she'd just told me she'd annexed my kitchen. "Ma'am," I said, gesturing broadly at the trees, the boathouse, the dock beneath her feet. "You are currently standing on private property. This lake, every drop of it, is mine. My deed includes full ownership, lake bed, shoreline, even the airspace above it. You can't just claim it because your HOA printed a flyer." Karen tilted her head like she was listening to a confused child. "You might think that, Mr. Colton. Danny Colton." "Right, Mr. Colton, but we've already discussed this with our board, and we voted. The lake should be considered a community asset. It's only fair to the residents. Your boat," she sneered the word, "creates noise pollution, disturbs the aesthetic, and directly conflicts with our mission of serene, family-oriented outdoor space." I stared at her, then at the boat, then back at her. "It's a 10-horsepower engine," I said. "It's quieter than your Prius." She stepped forward onto the dock, onto my dock, and glanced down at the boards like she was evaluating their compliance with some imaginary regulation. "We'll be sending a formal notice," she said. "But I wanted to give you a friendly heads up first." I couldn't help myself. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was unreal. This woman, who had no legal connection to my land or lake, had marched onto my dock to tell me my boat was too ugly for her taste. "Consider me officially unheads-upped," I said. "Now I suggest you turn around and leave before I start charging rent for standing on my pier." Karen didn't move. Her lips thinned into a smile that felt like it had teeth. "You'll be hearing from us soon, Mr. Colton. I suggest you start reading the community guidelines." And just like that, she turned and walked off, straight across the lawn, like the land was hers, back toward her HOA-fueled kingdom. My blood was boiling, but I kept my mouth shut. I didn't need to argue. I had something more powerful than HOA flyers. I had the truth, and a damn good property deed to prove it. Karen's visit rattled something loose in me. Not fear. No, that wasn't it. It was more like the cautious tension of a man who just realized someone's been walking through his living room without wiping their shoes. And she wasn't bluffing. 2 days later, a glossy HOA letter showed up in my mailbox, addressed to lakefront neighbor, as if the mere implication of their proximity gave them jurisdiction. It outlined expected compliance behaviors, and while it never outright said I had to remove my boat, it was full of buzzwords like visual integrity, community harmony, and expected shoreline etiquette. I nearly framed it out of spite, but it was the final line that really got me. Waterside Bay Fishing Club reserves space at the lake every Saturday morning for exclusive resident use. That one sentence flipped a switch. I walked back to my dock that same afternoon, stared out across the water, and noticed something that hadn't clicked before. Buoys. New ones, bright orange, bobbing along the eastern edge of the lake. Not mine. I didn't install them. And I sure as hell hadn't approved any club reservations. The next morning, I got to work. I launched my drone, a decent quadcopter with a 4K camera, and sent it up for a full perimeter scan. What I found made my jaw tighten. 5 boats. 5. All flying tiny HOA pennants from the stern, like some HOA Navy had set sail. They weren't fishing. They were tailgating on the water. On my water. A pop-up canopy had been pitched at the southern bank. My southern bank, complete with coolers, collapsible tables, lawn chairs, and a propane grill. Smoke curled upward from sizzling meat as people laughed, drank, and tossed fishing lines into water they had no business touching. And then I saw it. A folding A-frame sign right there at the end of my pier. Reserved, Iowa Fishing Club, 8 a.m. 12 p.m. in laminated font with their logo. I don't remember what I muttered, but I'm pretty sure the fish swam away from the profanity. Fuming, I walked the shoreline and found footprints, dozens of them, cutting through my property where they'd hauled in gear, chairs, even a speaker system. One corner of my dock had new bolts drilled into it, no doubt to anchor one of their makeshift banners. The disrespect was so thorough, it bordered on parody. That night, I installed new trail cams in the trees. Thermal motion activated, 360-degree field of view, night vision. Overkill? Maybe. But at this point, I wasn't just defending a lake. I was protecting my line in the sand. And the next morning, oh, they were back. Same people, same setup. this time with HOA branded t-shirts. I watched them in real time from my phone, sipping coffee and stewing. One guy cracked open a beer at 9:14 a.m. Another casually peed behind a bush on my property like it was a public park. One woman even yelled, "Somebody grab the bait cooler from Karen's truck," as she strutted across my lawn in wedge sandals. I took screenshots, I recorded footage, and I gathered every inch of documentation, my deed, parcel maps, water rights, into a single folder. That afternoon, I took it to my lawyer. He scanned through the stack with a practiced eye, then looked up at me. "Mr. Colton," he said, "they've got less legal standing on that lake than a rubber duck. And if they drilled into your pier, that's destruction of private property. You could sue. You should sue." But I wasn't ready for court just yet. No, first, I wanted them off my lake. I wanted Karen and her cocktail fishing pirates to feel the weight of trespassing. I wanted every one of them to know you don't get to plant your flags where you don't own the soil. So I picked up my phone, pulled up the number for the county sheriff's department, and hit call. I'll admit it, I was practically vibrating with anticipation when I made the call. There's a difference between pettiness and justice, and I was dancing that line like it was a tightrope strung across my dock. The sheriff's dispatcher took my statement with admirable calm, even as I described a pop-up bar, 5 unauthorized boats, and an entire HOA fishing festival taking place on my private property. She said an officer would be dispatched shortly. I thanked her, hung up, and went to put on my best flannel. If they were going to film this for court or YouTube, I wanted to look sharp. I didn't have to wait long. About 20 minutes later, I heard tires on gravel and the distinct rumble of a patrol boat being lowered into the water at the public access point 2 miles north. From the ridge, I watched the sheriff's unit cut across the lake like a shark among minnows. The HOA party didn't notice them at first, too busy taking selfies with their stupid little fishing hats and sipping from solo cups like they were on a reality show called Lake Entitlement. The boat idled up to the main dock. My dock, just as I stepped out of the trees, camera in hand, heart pounding in my chest. 2 deputies climbed out, badges gleaming, the younger one already adjusting his mirrored sunglasses like he was preparing for drama. The senior officer, a broad-shouldered man with a weathered face, spotted me and nodded. "Mr. Colton? That's me. We got your call. Want to walk us through it?" I gestured to the circus around us. "They're trespassing. All of them. This is my property, my lake, and I've got the deed, footage, and photographic evidence. They've been warned, repeatedly." The younger deputy turned, scanning the crowd as the noise finally started to die down. One of the fishing bros noticed the uniforms and straightened like a kid caught stealing candy. Then Karen appeared, striding down my dock like it belonged to her, holding a plastic cup and her phone like twin weapons. Her oversized HOA badge hung around her neck like she was a park ranger. "Well, this is ridiculous," she snapped before anyone addressed her. "We're conducting a sanctioned HOA event, and frankly, I don't appreciate being interrupted." The officer lifted a brow. "Ma'am, you are currently occupying and utilizing land and water that does not belong to you." Karen waved a dismissive hand. "The lake is public. We've discussed this in our board. We voted. It's shared." "You can't vote yourself into ownership, ma'am," the deputy replied. "That's not how private property works." Karen's voice sharpened like a blade. "Listen, officer, I don't know who this recluse thinks he is, but we represent the homeowners of this area. We contribute to this community. He can't just fence off nature and hoard it." "Ma'am," the officer repeated, slower this time, "you are trespassing. All of this." He motioned to the boats. "The grill, the coolers, even the freshly drilled umbrella stand is unauthorized use of private property." Karen took a sip of her drink, then did the unthinkable. She tossed the rest of it at the deputies' feet. A hush fell across the dock. The younger cop stepped forward. "That's it. Turn around, ma'am." She laughed. Actually laughed. "Are you serious? I'm the president of the HOA." The senior officer didn't flinch. "Congratulations. You're also under arrest for trespassing and disorderly conduct." Karen backed up, trying to save face, but tripped over a tackle box and grabbed the umbrella post for balance, which immediately snapped, sending her staggering sideways into the lake, with a splash that made 2 gulls flee the scene. Someone gasped. I may have snorted. Dripping and furious, she scrambled back up the shore like a soggy cat, mascara streaking like war paint. Handcuffs clicked. She shrieked something about lawyers and civil liberties as the officers guided her back to the patrol boat. "Mark my words," she screeched. "You'll regret this." This isn't over. I just gave her a calm two-finger salute as the deputies motored away with her soaking and sputtering in the back seat like the world's angriest koi fish. The rest of the HOA party packed up in stunned silence, heads down, avoiding my gaze. A few muttered half-hearted apologies. One guy tried to offer me jerky. I declined. Later that night, I reviewed the footage. The splash was even better in slow motion, but I knew Karen. That woman wasn't done. This wasn't her defeat. This was her origin story. You'd think getting hauled off the lake in handcuffs, soaked, humiliated, and escorted by law enforcement might humble a person. Not Karen. For her, that arrest was less a warning and more a battle cry. The very next morning, the war escalated. Not on the water this time, but in mailboxes, inboxes, and bureaucratic hallways. It started small. A new envelope appeared in my mailbox, this time stamped with a smiling lighthouse logo and a tagline that read, "Waterside Bay Cares." Inside was a letter, dripping with faux concern, stating that I had willfully endangered community members by maintaining an unregulated water structure and suggesting my dock was in serious need of review for safety compliance. It was signed by the HOA Safety and Environment Committee, which, as far as I could tell, consisted of Karen and possibly her dog. The next day, 2 more arrived, one accusing me of noise violations from aggressive boat activity, and another demanding I provide shared lake access plans in accordance with a fabricated clause they called Community Adjacent Resource. Expectations, that acronym, CARE. Cute, delusional, but cute. But then it got real. 3 days after the arrest, a white pickup truck pulled into my driveway unannounced. A man in a county-issued vest stepped out and introduced himself as an environmental use inspector. According to him, someone had filed an anonymous complaint accusing me of contaminating the water with gasoline runoff, improperly disposing of fishing bait, and disturbing the ecosystem. I stood there slack-jawed as he examined the lake with binoculars like I was running a secret oil refinery out of my boathouse. "I'll need to take a few water samples, sir," he said. I gritted my teeth, but let him do it, because I had nothing to hide. But I knew exactly who was behind this. The next visitor was from the zoning department, then code enforcement, then the Dam Parks and Recreation Bureau. One woman even asked if I had the permits required for outdoor recreational signage. I had to ask her to clarify, and she pointed to my hand-painted private dock keep off sign. All of this in the span of 8 days. Karen had gone full scorched earth, filing every petty complaint her HOA brain could fabricate. If there was a municipal department with a letterhead, she'd called them. And she didn't stop there. Flyers began appearing around town with slogans like, "Save our lake from private greed," "Stop the dock blocker," "Demand lake justice." One had my drone-captured photo, cropped to make it look like I was yelling at children, when, in reality, I was yelling at a drunk HOA member who dropped a bratwurst in my koi pond. Karen even launched a Facebook group titled Waterside Watchdog Coalition, where she posted daily conspiracy theories about my boat harboring invasive species, my dock being an unauthorized commercial structure, and, my personal favorite, that I was running an illegal underground marina. I was livid, and not just annoyed, fury, real fury. The kind that makes you sit at your desk at 2 a.m. rereading your deed out loud to no one like it's the Constitution. I tried reason. I sent cease and desist letters. I even called her once. "Karen," I said through clenched teeth, "this is harassment." She didn't even deny it, just replied, smug as ever, "It's called community action, Danny. The people have a right to be heard." I hung up and stared at my lake. My sanctuary had become a battlefield, and I'd had enough. No more warnings, no more patience. If Karen wanted a war, fine. I was taking her, and her entire HOA circus, to court. I've never been a man who enjoys courtrooms. Too much wood paneling, too many neckties, and that lingering scent of stress and reheated coffee. But when I walked through those double doors on the morning of my hearing, clutching a leather folder packed with evidence and a USB drive full of drone footage, I didn't feel nervous. I felt like a man about to pull the curtain off a circus act. The case was officially filed as Colton vs. Waterside Bay HOA, though it may as well have been titled Sanity vs. Karen. My lawyer, a tall, unshakable woman named Elise Monroe, specialized in property rights and had the kind of calm fury you usually only see in high-end chefs or trauma surgeons. She reviewed every page of our case like it was her own personal grudge. We were seeking $200,000 in damages, plus full reimbursement of legal costs. Our claims: unlawful trespass, defacement of private property, malicious harassment, and defamation. I didn't just want a ruling. I wanted a message, a verdict that echoed across every HOA boardroom in the state. Karen showed up looking like she was heading to a press conference. Navy blazer, huge pearl necklace, an entire entourage of HOA board members in matching pastel sweaters, like they were about to perform synchronized litigation. Her lawyer, some smug guy in tortoiseshell glasses named Gerald, began the defense by arguing that community consensus justified temporary access to the lake. Elise didn't even blink. "Your Honor," she said, standing calmly, "there is no community consensus clause in the U.S. Constitution or in real estate law. There is only deeded ownership and trespass. Let's not confuse mob enthusiasm with legality." Boom. First volley fired. The judge, a middle-aged woman who had clearly seen her share of ridiculous HOA cases, raised an eyebrow. "Let's proceed with evidence." And, oh, did we have evidence? Elise presented drone footage of unauthorized boats, photos of buoys, banners, grills, and drunk fishing bros, recordings of Karen declaring the lake shared by default, emails sent from the HOA account referring to me as the Greedy Lake. Tyrant. When we showed the video of Karen being arrested on my dock and then zoomed in on her flipping off the deputy while slipping in algae, the courtroom audibly gasped. One of the board members facepalmed. Gerald looked like he swallowed a stapler. Karen tried to save face on the stand, claiming that the HOA had simply misinterpreted jurisdiction boundaries. Elise pulled out my plat maps, zoning charts, and aerial overlays. "Misinterpretation doesn't explain drilling signs into a private dock," she said coolly. Then came the final nail. An environmental report showing no contamination, no invasive species, and no misuse of water, contradicting every bogus complaint Karen had filed over the past month. The judge looked over her glasses and asked Karen directly, "Were you aware that Mr. Colton's property and lake rights predate your HOA by 15 years? Karen stammered, "We assumed." "That's not what I asked." Karen shrank. It was the first time I'd ever seen her deflate like a balloon finally poked by reality. After closing statements, the judge recessed. When she returned 30 minutes later, her decision hit like a lightning bolt. The court finds in favor of Mr. Colton. The HOA is ordered to pay $200,000 in damages, plus all attorney fees and filing costs. Furthermore, the association is required to remove all promotional materials referencing access to Lake Colton and cease all trespassing activities. A permanent injunction is hereby granted. Karen stood frozen. The pastel posse behind her didn't dare speak. Gerald began packing up his briefcase like it was a crime scene. But the best part? The judge turned directly to Karen and added, almost like an afterthought, "You personally are barred from coming within 200 feet of Mr. Colton's shoreline. If I see your name on another nuisance complaint about this property, I will consider it contempt of court." Boom. Outside the courthouse, local news had caught wind of the case. They called it the Great Lake Showdown. A reporter asked me for a quote. I kept it simple. "Don't poke the bear when the bear owns the forest." And the lake. That night, I grilled steak on my dock, raised a glass to the stars, and for the first time in weeks, the water was silent again. No buoys, no echoing karaoke from HOA pontoon parties, no Karen, just frogs, fireflies, and the kind of peace you earn when you stand your ground. 3 weeks after the verdict, the lake was mine again, clean, quiet, and unclaimed by pastel-shirted invaders. The old buoy markers were gone. The pier was repaired. I even repainted the private property sign with a fresh coat of bold red letters, just for dramatic flair, but it didn't feel finished. See, when someone tries to hijack your lake, rally a suburban army against you, and accuse your dock of being a floating menace to community spirit, you don't just walk away quietly, you throw a damn party, and that's exactly what I did. I called it the first annual Carps and Karen Festival. An invite-only lakeside gathering for neighbors, friends, and anyone who appreciated boundaries, property rights, and barbecued catfish. Invitations featured a cartoon fish wearing pearls and sunglasses with the tagline, "Buy OB, bring your own boundaries." I set up long tables on the grass, rented a dunk tank, installed a temporary karaoke booth, ironically placed where Karen once held her HOA Harmony Hour. My cousin Rick brought his famous smoked ribs, and we even had a pin the citation on the HOA president board, complete with Velcro. The main event. A mock trial called People vs. Pond Pirates, where I dressed as a judge, and my neighbor's golden retriever played the bailiff. A 5-year-old declared Karen guilty of being super loud and yelling at ducks. The courtroom roared. And yes, we fished, peacefully, respectfully, without laminated reservation signs or unauthorized cocktail stations. As the sun dipped low and fireflies flickered over the water, I looked out over my property, my sanctuary, now full of laughter, music, and 0 Karen sightings. Someone handed me a cupcake decorated like a koi fish. I took a bite and raised my drink. To clear water, I said, "And clearer boundaries." They cheered. Later that night, as I sat alone on the dock, feet dangling over the water, a single frog croaked in approval. The lake was calm again, not just on the surface, but underneath. No more HOA fishers, no more unsolicited bylaws, just me, my boat, and the occasional carp who knew better than to cross my line.